Hey everybody, it's Never, and I wanted to do something a little unusual. I guess it's not that unusual, but to do it to a greater extreme than I've ever done it. And that is, I'm going to break the fourth wall. So, if I just... There's got to be a way to... that'll probably work. Okay, hold on just a second. Okay. So here we are out here. I wanted to talk about a couple of pieces of equipment that I use that I think are worth talking about. The first one is this thing. This is called a speed pad. There's a couple of versions of it. This is the N52 Tournament Edition, but I'll get into what makes this thing so great in a minute. And there's also this mouse that I really love. You'll notice my really old mouse pad that's like 15 or 16 or 17 years old. It's funny that I have a Star Wars prequels mouse pad when I spend a good deal of my spare time talking about how terrible those movies were. And you believe me, I'll make a video sometime talking about how awful that is. So this is a Logitech G700. There's a newer version of it, but it's got 4 buttons on the side and 3 buttons on the top, and this happy little button up here, and a tilt wheel. So it's got like a million billion buttons. And I'll get into why that's so great. And then over here we've got the speed pad, which has got a D-pad right here, and a button there, and a button there, and a thingy here, and you can push it, and then like 14 keys right there. And this is how I do my setup, is with these. The keyboard is there, and it's great, and it lights up, but these things are the real bread and butter. So the way that I sort this out is I do all of my movement on the mouse. So right here, I've got auto run. Gotta find a way I can do this. So we've got auto run with this button here, jump with this button here. This one is shift, and this one is control. You can see there's 2 buttons right there, shift and control. And then I've got end and home and F5 in the middle. F5 because it's commonly quick save on a lot of games, and because it refreshes pages in my browser, and then escape right here. And what this allows me to do is I've got things like Shift plus home brings up my pet battle screen, or Control plus F5 brings up my my world map pane. So it allows me to have a lot of functions right here with 2 modifier keys that are commonly used and 3 other keys that are also commonly used, and I can bind those to things in the game. This also allows me to shift and control click things in the game with one hand. I use the tilt wheel left and right for strafing. The left on this mouse is actually broken, so I can't strafe left very reliably. It works a little bit sometimes, so I mostly strafe right. And then I've got middle mouse button as back pedal, and then I just use the 2 mouse buttons or auto run to go forward. And it works surprisingly well. So that's how I do movement. And then this is escape to bring up the game menu. This button changes the mouse to like free rolling thing, which is a little useless to me, but what can you do? Wonderful mouse. They're kind of expensive, but very, very worth it. Over here on the speed pad, it's kind of the opposite idea. There's no movement on here at all. In some other games like Skyrim, then I use the D-pad for movement. But over here, you'll see that on the screen, I've got my action bar buttons on my UI. And there are 10 large buttons that correspond to these 10. And then there's 4 smaller ones that correspond to the bottom left 4 buttons on the smaller row down there. And so these are my abilities. And over here, I've got back bound to tab, so I can tab target. And then this is shift and control and alt, respectively. So I get a full separate page for these right here. And that's where all the paging happens. It allows me to have 40 different main action bar abilities without having to move my hand or look at the keys at all. And then I've got some extra stuff down here for some more. And then like scrolling this down is how I switch to walk for RP stuff. Scrolling it up is draw weapon. And then pushing it in the middle does my random mount. This I have to spacebar so that it's for sitting down or for moving down as opposed to jump on the other side. And then this is what I use for ventrilo or mumble. So that's the actual control configuration that I use. And it makes my UI make a little more sense. And it works really well. I've been using it this way for 6 or 7 years now with an older speed pad and a less buttony mouse. but it works really great. Another thing I'll point out about this mouse is why I'm not using like a G600. That is because there are buttons all over the side of it. And there's three basic kind of mouse grips. There's a palm grip where you're moving it with your elbow and your wrist doesn't touch the ground, or the table. There's the claw grip where you're doing one of these and you kind of grip the mouse with your palm, and that's awkward to me. So I use what's called a fingertip grip. So the movements for the mouse are done with my fingertips. Well, that means I need to apply pressure here, and if there's buttons in the way, I accidentally press them. I actually had one for a while, a G600, and I just couldn't make it work, so I switched back to one of these, and I wish that there was a way to have more buttons, but this is as good as it gets that I've been able to find. So anyway, that is my control configuration. Here's my microphone. Although this segment is the microphone on my phone, so there's a duality of the word phone for you. But you'll see that I don't really play favorites. Logitech is great, and Razer is great. Razer makes this. Logitech makes a pad like this that's called the G15, I think? G something. Anyway, and it's really good too. They're both all right, and so that's how I do that. I guess while I'm at it, I'll show you the computer that I use. This computer, I named him Handles, and I put this window in custom myself, and I don't run anything really fancy. I set up that thing there that has my SSDs sitting vertical. That's an addition I made with my Dremel tool, and it's an i5. It's the Haswell i5 on a mini ITX board, 8 gigs of RAM, and a couple of SSDs, and then if we go over here, I put some custom ports on the side for cooling for the video card, and this is taped over because it flashes at night and keeps me awake. So these are actually filtered ports for air to go right onto the video card, and it's what do you call it? GTX 770 with 4 gigs of RAM because of Skyrim. Because if you do Skyrim with 2 gigs of RAM, you're going to have a bad time. So let's head back into the game. Okay, on back in. Oh, too far. So that's a little bit about how I do my control. So to tie that all in, here's the 10 buttons I was talking about. These three right here, this one is actually underneath that scroll wheel on the speed pad, and that's my cat. And then I've got a couple of the top mouse buttons on that mouse bound to these keys, and then I can shift and control to other pages, and I can also alt to other pages. He is loud. He's part Bengal, that's why he's so noisy. Bengals are noisy, but he's a sweetheart. So that's how I do. That's the setup for control, which is something that can't really show in-game all that well, but it works really well. The main focus is that it keeps your eyes on what you're doing, and it makes it so that you don't need to worry about looking at your keys or figuring out where things are. It's all easy to do with a little bit of muscle memory. If you're going to get one thing, get a speed pad. I cannot recommend that enough. There's an orb weaver that has an extra row of keys, which I've never used, but man, if somebody gave me one, I'd be thrilled. So, but they're like $120, so that's why I don't have one, because that's a lot to spend on a gamepad. So anyway, I hope you enjoy. I hope that was helpful to some of you. And if you are going to use the mouse tilt wheel thing to do your movement, make sure you get that finger some exercise, because it can mess your finger up a little bit if you do that and you're pushing really hard. So be gentle, be careful, don't mess your hands up, because they're an invaluable piece of machinery for gaming and for a lot of other things too. But anyway, that's enough. That's enough fatherly advice. So thanks for watching, and please like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. And okay, thanks, bye.